It's time for everybody's favorite moment, perhaps favorite review of the year. We have to talk about the brand new Emmure album entitled Look at Yourself. And I'm ready for this, man. I'm dressed in something that definitely doesn't make it appear like I'm talking about a metal record, maybe just because it might piss some of the fans off. Maybe it's just because it was what I was wearing whenever I decided to hit record. What, I have things to do too. I have a life. Either way, this is something that a lot have been looking forward to, and it's time for us to do this. And maybe Look at Yourself is more of a metaphor and more of a truth than we actually think. Let's take a look at this. 13 tracks, 31 minutes in length this album is. And the last couple of times that we've spoken about this band, even though their own fans have stated it to be some of their strongest material, I simply have not seen it. It was not something that was apparent to me both as a reviewer and as a human freaking being. But we continue to try, we continue to look, we continue to explore the music of these bands. You asked for it being the very first cut, an instrumental that sets us up for Shinjuku Masterlord, which is one that definitely shows that this is a Emmure that has a lot of similarities from their previous releases, but also some noted differences. This is one that does have that deathcore and metalcore means that still exists. It's one that is still really categorized by its thunderous riffs that have a certain element of simplicity to them, but perhaps for good reason. And it is certainly one that is boosted by Frankie Palmieri's just sort of destructive vocals that at one point do descend into almost a hip-hop overture with a metal backbone. And based off of that, we do encounter this a couple of different times on this record. It's not something that's all of that out of the ordinary. However, this is one that feels a little bit clusterfucked. It doesn't feel like it has a lot really to gain, but at the same time, it is damned endearing and intriguing. That's the one real positive that this track possesses as your opening introduction into what Look at Yourself is really doing. It does really give you this sort of motion, this idea of what could potentially happen next. We get into Smokey and Natural Born Killer all the way into Flag of the Beast, and we start to get a little bit more of a noticeable point of what this album is going to be about. There's going to be some shorter tracks that are just going to aim to be as thunderous as possible, that are really going to aim to take the riffs up a notch and really add a lot of low end to it. And the real thing that Frankie's doing here that I find to be very different than some of his elder works is that he's really paying a lot more mind to that low end. There's a lot more that is sort of staying alongside of the low end that you hear musically, but also at the same time, you're hearing some new metalisms that are cascading with deathcore in order to perhaps make new deathcore, and it's actually not as bad as it sounds. It's actually something that has, and it feels like the logical progression of what nu metal began more than 15 years ago, trying to put a heaviness quotient on there and perhaps distancing itself a little bit further away from hip-hop, but not completely, instead only offering it in small doses here and there. Vocabulary speaking, considering that was one real problem of prior albums, this is certainly one that feels a little bit more advanced. It feels like that it has a little bit more charm to it, a little bit more maturity to it. Is this something that's a direct result of prior comment? I highly doubt it! But Frankie Palmieri definitely seems to still have some of those Fred Durstisms in him every so often, which we saw really more so in Shinjuku Masterlord than any other song on this release. But even still, it still is something that is present every so often. Ice Man Confessionals and Russian Hotel Aftermath I actually have to give some praise to because both of these are pretty well done. I like the way in which these songs sort of combine into one another, but at the same time feel individual. And I also enjoy just the way that it goes as far as vocally is concerned. It's one where everything is felt as opposed to feeling like it's just meant to be some sort of either joke or really not meant to be taken that seriously. These are two tracks that feel like it has a lot of guts that are behind them, and they're legitimate as opposed to feeling like a laughingstock or, you know, something that's just meant to make bros really, really amped up and want to lift a lot of weights and kick a bunch of people's asses because they're posers and because they don't like the way I wear my hat and my tap-out gear, bro. Wow, bro, that bro sucks. I can't bro and believe it. That bro, motherfucker, that bro. But these are two tracks I have to really praise from Emmure. Very well done. And then whenever we get to the second half of this album, we get a lot of real short tracks. 2 minutes, 2.5, really being your highlight point whenever it comes to space until you get to Gucci Prison, which is the final cut on this album and also the longest song at 4 minutes. It doesn't offer anything that you haven't heard before. but it still has a little bit of a nomenclature of change behind it, considering the previous tracks that you've got. One of them, in fact, the one right before it, was barely even cracking the 1 minute mark in Derelict. I also really enjoyed Turtle in a Hair Machine. I don't know if it's just because I really like that album, or that song title, or if it was because the track itself didn't feel like garbage. Maybe it's a combination of the two. Either way, I felt that was pretty well done. Major Key Alert, which was right before that song, track number 9, I expected something a little bit different than what was kind of given. This album really feels like it's aimed a lot toward those that perhaps judge the band, but at the same time also aimed a lot at those who judge others. And maybe that is part of the idea behind it. Maybe that's the positive, uplifting message that some people love, but it's, I think, lost on a lot of people that just enjoy it because it feels like you want to throw a couple middle fingers in the air and punch everything in sight. But that being said, Look at Yourself does accomplish a couple of things. Look at Yourself is the first Emmure album that I have reviewed, that I have not only made it through the whole album without wanting to turn it off, but actually tracks such as Iceman Confessions and Russian Hotel Aftermath have made me want to revisit songs on an Emmure album, which previously was not something that was done. This is an album that feels a lot more cohesive. This is one that feels like it has a very strong semblance of identity. I remember that it was a couple of years ago we were speaking about how Emmure was just Frankie Palmieri. The whole entire band decided to get up and leave, or he fired them all, or whatever the hell the situation was, and now it is a brand new band that he assembled. That was a really good move. That was a really, really, really good move, because this album, this is the best thing from Emmure that I've heard. I really like this disc. I think that it feels a lot more consistent. I also feel like it has that more sort of noticeable identity. It sticks within its principle, and it doesn't deviate too far. It's one that is not afraid to go full tilt, and every transition that you get on this record feels very much like it belongs there. They're not overly reliant on breakdowns. They are instead doing things that make interesting music, instead of just relying on, certain, musical concepts that are starting to dry up as far as their relevance is concerned, or their durability is concerned. Emmure decided to sort of take the high road and move themselves away from it. Not abandon it completely, not by a long shot, but at least try to showcase that they are a little bit more of a dynamic band than what you perhaps had heard with albums past. I know, this is sounding a little scary. It's sounding like I'm prepared to praise an Emmure album with a good score. And that's because I am. This is a 15 out of 30. This is on the high end of average. This is a disc that's pretty enjoyable to listen to. Coming from a guy who didn't previously enjoy anything of this band, I'm pleasantly surprised. And this is why I continuously stress the idea of going back to bands that perhaps have gotten bad scores in the past and listening to newer work. Because bands do evolve, sounds evolve, interests evolve, many things change as the years go by. And with Emmure, it definitely sounds like the changeover in personnel has been magnificent. It's been something that has helped them instead of hindered them. And yeah, this actually means that Emmure has just scored better than both Suicide Silence and 6 Feet Under. Don't take that as an insult. Take that as a wake-up call if those two bands happen to be two of your favorites, that they release some duds. And they have some work to do. 6 Feet Under has about, 3 years worth of work to do. Whereas Suicide Silence has work to do and an attitude to adjust. Someone might want to call John Cena. Da-da-da-da. I want to know what you guys think about Look at Yourself by Emmure. Let me know in the comments below. I'm coverkillernation. And I need to get out of these clothes into something more metal. Because that sounds so attractive. I don't know. This is really comfortable. I might just hang out like this. Just kind of kick back. Yeah. Hang out on my Lime Popsicle couch. Fuck you. This is comfortable. Why isn't the couch more metal? Because the couch is comfortable. Why would you want to sit on a metal couch anyway? It hurt your ass after a while. I'll talk to you later. Peace.